Cultural Plunge of Los Angeles. For my cultural plunge, I visited Olvera Street and the Museum of Tolerance. I did both plunges on the same day, as they are both located in Los Angeles, California. I chose to go to Olvera Street because my roommate told me that it was a very good representation of Mexican culture. As he explained his experience of the street to me, it seemed like a great place to go for this project. My roommate was excited to take me to learn more about Mexican culture. I chose to go to the Museum of Tolerance because it seemed very interesting to me. I first heard about the museum when it was mentioned in lecture. I researched the museum and wanted to experience it for myself. My first cultural plunge experience was going to Olvera Street in Los Angeles, California. I visited the street on November 15th with my Latino roommate, Juan, and his family. The street was very crowded. As we first walked up, we saw people dancing to live salsa music. The music was upbeat, and there was a large crowd watching the dancers. Below is a video of the event. We then walked through the main part of the street. The walkway was very narrow, and there were shops along the entire street. Food shops and clothing shops selling Mexican food and attire were everywhere. We ended up eating at one of the small shops. The authentic Mexican food was amazing. After we ate, I talked to one of the employees, Refugio. I asked him what he likes about the small Mexican community of Olvera Street. Refugio told me that he loves how he feels at home whenever he is there because his family lives in Mexico. He said he loves the music and the atmosphere. The attitude of the shop owners was very welcoming. They made me feel comfortable. I got to see all kinds of handcrafted goods. Many of the goods were Catholic-based, which is a big part of the culture. Wooden signs are hand-carved and represent various meanings such as justice, fertility, and peace. My second cultural plunge experience was going to the Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles, California. I visited the museum on November 15th. When I first stepped inside, I was impressed by how nice the facility was. The historian brought my group down to 2 doors and asked us to choose which one we wanted to go through. One door was labeled Prejudice, and one was labeled Unprejudiced. Our group chose to go through the Prejudiced door.
Isn't everybody open-minded like us?
Because they're jerks, not like us.
I mean, we're not even expected to be tolerant all of the time.
Like you're at the convenience store, right? And it's a complete joke because the guy behind the counter doesn't know English, so you're being decent and all that, but you're thinking, for God's sake, just learn the language, will you? You know what I mean?
Better rephrase that.
I was way out of line there. I'll admit it.
We're all more tolerant than that.
Sure. I love foreign people.
We all do. This is the great melting pot.
Sometimes it's just funny, that's all. You do like jokes, don't you? So what it comes down to is I got a heart as big as a house, and so do you. Please, step through the door of your choice.
Inside the door were many different displays that played footage that was hard to watch. It contained racism, hate, and terrorism. There was a display called The Point of View Diner. Here we watched a video about freedom of speech. There was a conflict of racism between a black man and a white man, and someone was killed because of it. We got to interact on our own TV monitors and interview the people in the film. The museum also contained a large area in memory of 9/11. What I learned most from the museum was from the Holocaust displays. They depicted what it was like for the Jewish victims that had to go through such horrible acts of violence and hate. From this cultural plunge, I learned that people often ignore these horrible acts of hate that happened in the past. I learned that we need to face these things so that we can learn from them and move forward. Another cultural topic that I learned about was child slavery throughout the world. It was very eye-opening to see the innocence of such young children being stripped from them. As many as 300,000 children are forced into child slavery each year. The two cultural plunges that I experienced had many similarities and differences. They both taught me that although sometimes I may think that I am living in a very diverse society, there is much more to each culture than what is seen in the United States. Each different culture has so much to offer. The plunges were also similar because they both brought me out of my comfort zone and put me into an environment where I could feel the cultural differences. One difference in the two cultural plunges I experienced is that Olvera Street was very festive and overall a celebration of the Mexican culture, whereas the Museum of Tolerance showed very malicious and dark aspects of history, such as the Holocaust and child slavery. I had interaction in both experiences, but Olvera Street was more of a real-life experience, and the museum was a more formal educational setting. The things I experienced in my cultural plunge relate to many concepts from the course. First was the point of view diner. In the video, a white man and a white woman were talking at home about a racist radio show and were partaking in backstage racism. They were making comments in private in their home. The black police officer and black store owner also conversed privately about the white men in the store. When the conflict started, the black police officer and the white customer partook in front stage racism as they shouted slurs at each other. This connects to the concepts of backstage and front stage racism from Chapter 11, Backstage Racism, Implications for Teaching. Another connection from Chapter 11 relates to the Nieto maps that we made in class. The teachings from the Museum of Tolerance about the Holocaust are an extreme example of institutional racism. When individuals display individual racism toward a group and make racist remarks, they can hurt people, but the overall consequences are not immense. In a scenario like the Holocaust, when great power and institutions make laws against certain groups of people, the consequences are enormous. In this case, millions of people died. My cultural plunge at Olvera Street also had connections to course concepts. Chapter 10, Approaches to Multicultural Curriculum Reform, discusses how curriculums throughout the United States are shaped for the white middle-class student. I understood this concept, but after experiencing such rich culture on Olvera Street, I quickly realized how much of the great culture is missing in our curriculums. When you're in the environment of the dominant culture, it is hard to see how biased it is. But once you step out and experience other cultures, it is easy to see the huge lack in multicultural education. I learned so much from my cultural plunge experience. I got to see how people from other cultures interacted in a social setting. I also got to try authentic Mexican food with my roommate and his family. The displays I saw in the Museum of Tolerance were very eye-opening, as they urged me to face many difficult topics and to learn from them. I am thankful for this assignment because I got to adventure and experience new things that I might not have done otherwise. My cultural plunge concluded with the enjoyment of a fresh, chocolate-filled churro.